Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all, and I hope you're having a good end to the month of July. So today we are having our 7th meetup for the year, and my name is Linda Nsifel. I am the founder of the Women in RMEL group, which is an online community that seeks to guide and help women to accelerate their careers in the research, monitoring, evaluation, and learning space. Okay, so before we dive into the topic for today, I'd like us to just do one or two ice-breaking activities. It would have been nice if we had more people on the call, but let's see how it goes. So I'm going to share a Mentimeter link in the chat, and I'll be sharing my screen shortly. So please let me know if you're able to access it. Alternatively, you can also just go to menti.com and enter the code, which I'll be sharing soon. Okay. All right, so I'll share my screen now. And sharing very soon. Okay, I hope you can all see my screen. Okay, so just to have an idea of the geographical spread of participants for today, kindly let us know where you're joining us from. So once you access the page, okay, nice, Scotland. Any more? Hey, Anna. Any more? Okay. We move on then. So to the participants joining today, what are you expecting from today's session? Just share what you have in mind or what you thought about when you heard the topic. Yeah, what are you hoping to gain out of today's session? Okay, so the response here says to get a sense of how TolaData can help me with my MME work. Okay. Any others? Okay, let's move on. Okay, so what monitoring and evaluation tools or methods do you apply in your work? So you can provide as many responses. You're limited to 3. Okay. So we have M&E work plan, theory of change, and log frame. Any other responses? Okay, Kobo toolbox. Yeah, that one is pretty popular. Any others? Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Have you ever used a monitoring and evaluation software for any project? So you either respond yes or no. Okay, so we have one no, one yes. Any more responses? Okay, so we have like 50-50. Okay, so that ends our icebreaker activity. Okay, so if you just joined us, you're welcome. So at this moment, I will introduce our speaker for today. Okay, so Hannah is an international consultant specializing in empowering organizations to digitize their M&E as the business development manager at TolaData, a monitoring and evaluation platform for the humanitarian sector. She supports M&E professionals, project managers, and consultants to sculpt tailored but uncomplicated processes and regain breathing space over their project management, monitoring, and reporting requirements. With a background in international NGOs and a zest for tech for good, she's passionate about participatory sustainable development through a feminist lens to bring us closer to the type of society we desire. Great. Well, I love your profile, Hannah. So without wasting much time, I would like you to take the stage and yeah, help us to explore what TolaData can do in our work. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Linda. And some more people have joined us since the icebreaker round, which is nice to see. So I hope you're ready to get stuck in since you missed the icebreaker, but I assume that it will be no problem and we can still have a lovely discussion and get to know each other and to chat. I'm going to start sharing my screen straight away. I've prepared a little slideshow, so let me start there. Because as you said, we had a 50-50 split between I have and I have not used an M&E tool for my work before. So this is an interesting one because TolaData essentially at its core is an M&E tool. So it will be fun for us to dive into this together and see what we can learn. And I'm excited to show you, but also to hear maybe some feedback or questions that you might have, especially if these are fresh eyes. If you've not met TolaData before, then it will be really, really interesting for me as well to find out what you think and what your initial thoughts are. So before I do any of that, since you may have never heard of TolaData before, I'd like to first dive into who we are or what is TolaData. So it's a social tech company. We've been around for about 7 years now, I think. So young, but not so young. We're in our awkward phase, I would say. We're not a baby, but not quite a grown up just yet. So when those ducklings are starting to sprout all their weird feather. Anyway, it's a silly analogy, but we're a social tech company. We provide project management and at its core M&E software for international development projects all over the world in the humanitarian sector. We have all sorts of different organizations which use TolaData in many languages. Our team is multilingual. The sorts of people who use TolaData are multilingual. As I said, it's being used on all around the world. I couldn't even begin to try and list, but it's a impressive and fun way to meet people from lots of different backgrounds working at TolaData. So the company itself, as I mentioned, we're about 7 years old, so founded in 2016. It was actually conceptualized by an NGO team on the ground in the field. This is how TolaData first came to be. They realized that they really needed something to help them do this work, and so it was really developed by experts and by those who needed the tool. And this is what the kind of logic that we've really applied to TolaData as it's grown. So I'm sure you can imagine it was first conceptualized by this team, and it was in its very basic state. And ever since then, it's been growing and growing. And the way that we choose to grow the tool is just in direct dialogue with the people who use it. So we receive various feedback from all of the different users, from people who see the tool. So it will be helpful to hear it from you today about how they would like to use it, what's useful, what's not so useful, and this is how we develop it. And this is because we are all ourselves at TolaData. We all have NGO, consulting, IT, or a mix of all three backgrounds. So it's very much an understood need from the point of view of those who actually work at TolaData. As I mentioned, we have well over 100 clients and thousands of users all around the world. I've listed some examples, those logos that you see here that we can share. There are many, many more, and like I mentioned, they range, from very small grassroots NGOs to international consortiums, government agencies. TolaData is heavily used by GIZ, which is the German Federal Development Agency, lots of INGOs, educational institutions, the list goes on. So it's flexible is what I think we're getting from this. It can really be used by lots of different types of orgs, types of projects. So the current challenges that I think we face, I mean, I'm sure there are many. Maybe this is another icebreaker for another day, that there are quite a few challenges which we're facing in the sector, but I've listed 3 here for the purpose of the chat today. So firstly, that the demands have grown, the expectations of donors, supporters, public for evidence-based and tangible results have certainly grown. The way we work has changed. I think this is completely undeniable. I mean, there was this move towards digitalization and more remote requirements long ago, but I think we can all probably think of one global event which has pushed us even further towards this. And this even further emphasizes the need for remote management and collaboration and being able to work with those close to you on your team despite potentially being geographically far apart. It's completely normal. Now it's very much the norm, I think. However, despite these 2 factors, we find that resources are still limited. And of course, an effective M&E system requires proper skills and affordable infrastructures. And this is why we created TolaData. So I'm going to show you around TolaData, and I'm very excited to do so. But before I do so, I want to quickly show you this diagram, because I want to kind of set the foundation and create a background for how the tool works, what's actually going on in here. So I mentioned it's an M&E tool, but actually we can take you the whole way along the process. So I've split this into 3 columns. So if we first look on the left, we have data collection, and you'll see lots of names down here. So we see Kobo Toolbox. This was mentioned in the icebreaker. It's very widely used. I think it's quite an intuitive tool. I know it functions offline. So it can be heavily relied upon by a lot of people using TolaData and not using TolaData, but we also have things like Digital, which is a case management system, or ONA, and all of these can integrate via API with TolaData for your data collection. So you have this kind of seamless flow of data from collection into the system itself. We also have TolaData forms. So TolaData has its own inbuilt form builder, which some organizations will choose to use on its own or in combination with another data collection tool. you're really not limited. And then on the bottom left here, we have another few examples. I mean, I'm sure you could think of many more. We have things like Survey Solutions, Survey CTO, Excel. I've never met a data collection tool that can't export to CSV. So any of those could really be put in here, because you can import pretty much any machine readable file into TolaData. And that's where we move into the middle. So all of these tools, no matter what you're using, whether it's just one or a combination of different ones, or maybe there are quite a few international organizations who use TolaData for projects which roll out in countries all over the world in parallel to one another. And one country office might want to use Kobo and another country office might want to use Excel. It's no problem, because it can all go into the center. And that's where we have the big TolaData in the middle here. And this is for your management and tracking. And that's what I really want to show you today. And I will do so in the next couple of minutes. And then finally, you do all your lovely management and tracking, but what is it if you can't make it look great, if you can't show off your impact, you can't measure it accurately, and all of the rest? So this is when the visualization and reporting aspect comes in. And that's our final stream over here on the right. So we have TolaData's own reporting and dashboards, which I'm very excited to show you as well. It's a section I'm always proud of because I think it's quite beautiful. So I'm happy to have the opportunity to show you today. But of course, you can also export any of that lovely data that you import, whatever you might be doing with it. It can also be exported. I'm just going to quickly double check the chat just in case. Please feel free to ask questions in the window, of course, also given the opportunity to raise your hand. Yeah, we have scheduled some time for questions, but I'm very happy to take them also at any moment. We're a small group, so if you'd like to raise your hand or unmute the mic at any moment, please feel free to do so. It's really no problem. In fact, I encourage it. Super. Okay, I've gone too far ahead, so we won't go into questions and answers just yet. And I'm going to go straight into TolaData. So this is what it looks like when you first log in. Let me zoom in a little so it's a little more clear. So some of you may be familiar with this already. I can see the group has grown ever so slightly. So some might be familiar already. Others may have literally never seen this before. So I've given this kind of background to the data flow and how it actually works, but what does the system actually look like? How do you use it? So to give you a brief introduction into how that works, essentially over here on the left is all you really need to know in terms of navigation. We have the main navigation panel over here, and everything begins and is centered around a project. And a project in TolaData, it's really just a unit of data. It's where we're storing one data unit. So this might be a program, this might be a subsection of one larger project. You can really make it as creative as you need it to be. But within one data unit or one project, we have details, activities, indicators, forms. I mentioned building your own forms, data tables, which you can import for your specific project. And then finally, the dashboards where you can watch everything become beautiful and report on that impact. So if I, for example, select the name of one of my projects, I'm going to go maybe for this one here, this ABC school project. I click this and I'll automatically be redirected to this details section where I can then interact with the various details of the project. I also have the activity section, and this is used for the more classic kind of project management side of things. So if I scroll through here, you'll see that we can set up the various activities and tasks, their start and end dates, the users to whom they've been assigned, and various other pieces of information which need to roll out during the life cycle of the project. We have an indicator section, which is really where the fun begins. And maybe it's a bit ironic to call it fun, but I think it's true. I think this is the most interesting part of TolaData. This is where you're doing the heart of all of your work. You're creating your lovely visualization of your log frame over here. In this results framework section, you can see the indicator plan in full, and you can glean so much information just from here. You can see the names of the indicators, format, how frequently is the data being collected, and I suppose the most valuable part is on the end here where we see the actual versus target, but also the percentage achieved in that blue progress bar as well. So I think I'll spend a bit of time here to show you what we can really do in this section. I mentioned we have a form builder. You can also import some data tables. Here's an example of what they look like when they're imported, and then you can click on them and view the data. And then finally, the lovely dashboards. Maybe I can go for the same dashboard as I chose for the project. So this dashboard is reporting on the results of the project which I created. And this is just one example of what you can do. I have another one which I'll save for the end because it's brand new and I'm excited to show you. But essentially it's built up of all of these tiles, which we call widgets, and you can add images and text. And really, most interestingly, you can pull data directly from those indicators. So you see I'm hovering over it and it's completely interactive. And this is pulling data in real time from my indicators. So as an indicator is updated in the platform with new data or new information, it populates automatically in here. You don't need to worry about, updating a report, coming back, redoing things. All of it is just naturally landing in here. Here's an example of what it looks like when we're checking out some disaggregated data on a project as well. So this is one example of a dashboard. As I said, I have another one, but I'll save it for the finale. So now you have an idea of how TolaData works. I should also mention, in case it's relevant, I know there's a few of us here, so maybe we have a few different languages as well, that of course you can change the language. So for example, if I wanted to work in French, I could just update this here and click save, and now you can see immediately my interface has changed into French. So this is useful, especially when you're working with big teams. Many people are going to need the system in lots of different languages. So just to let you know that this, of course, is also possible. But let's get back to learning a little about what TolaData can do. So I hope at this point you have a general idea of the kind of foundation I was explaining, so how that data flow works. So we're looking at, I mentioned at the beginning, for anybody who wasn't there, that the type of organization and the number of organizations that use TolaData, there's many organizations, over 100, varying completely in size, in theme. We have, of course, some recurring things. We have a lot of TVET programs, a lot of sustainable agriculture, gender and empowerment programs, but some completely abstract or unique cases as well. We have organizations who use TolaData to track one program, and we have organizations who have offices all over the world who use TolaData for everything that they do. So it really does vary. So today I can only give one example, but I'm going to show you around this ABC School project, very creatively named ABC School project. It's an education project. So let me kick us off by going back into this details section. So this is where we can store just general details about our project, and the whole purpose of this area, I'll scroll through as I chat, is just holding general information about the project so that everybody who's working on this project team can come in, they can see it, they know all of the information is in one place. It's not being lost in an email or in a folder that's hidden in a drive somewhere, nothing like this. So you can find all of it here. You can add the sites where your project is rolling out. And that's accompanied then by this lovely map over here on the left. The general phases of your project, any stakeholders who are involved, and also, of course, link or upload documents so that everything is stored in one place. It's completely accessible to all of your team. All of your colleagues can come and find it, and there's no questions about where they need to do that. But then moving past this document section, we go to things like reporting periods or disaggregation types, and this is where we're starting to configure the project to be something that's very unique to our case. So of course we have standard periods, they're built into TolaData. And this is for if you want to report on just the standard calendar year. But of course this is not the case for a lot of organizations. They need to report on maybe a specific donor's calendar, or for the financial year, or whatever it might be. Could also be a project specific period. And that's when you start building your own. So for example, down here we have, it's still an annual period, but it begins on the 1st of July and ends on the 30th of June. Similarly, the disaggregation types, we have the standard disaggregation of country. This is built in, but anything else is custom. So ages or gender or literally anything at all, you can build those yourselves. And then you're able to disaggregate the information you put into TolaData by something which is very specific to your case and your project. And the reason this is here is because we're preparing for how we're going to interact with those all important indicators and the data that we add to them in the next section. So the only other thing I think I'll show you here for now is this team tab. And this is a super important area for everybody who uses TolaData, because this is where you can manage who has access to a project. So you saw in this list when I was on the project tab, we had lots and lots of projects. We don't all need access to all of them. So who has access to the project firstly? And if they have access, what level of access do they have? So for example, if I wanted to change my colleague Sarah's level of access, I can click here, and maybe she needs to be a data entry user because she should be able to log in but not to edit or delete anything. And it means that I have control over what's happening in my project, but also Sarah feels comfortable and confident that she's able to work in a space that is specific to her, and she's not going to make any errors or remove anything that shouldn't be removed, nothing like this. So everybody feels good. So this details section, I've gone through it pretty quickly, but the general idea is just bringing everything together and preparing for how you're going to interact with the project. So you're starting to customize things a little yourself here. I'm going to swing straight into the indicators section because I know we're a little tight on time, and I think this is the most interesting part. So within the indicators, we have 4 different tabs, but I'm actually going to begin with the results framework. I'll zoom out a little so you can see better. So here's one example of how we might visualize a log frame in TolaData. It's completely customizable, so I can move these around or create more. It's really just a visualization of my specific log frame for this one project. And then once this is created, the relationship of these elements here in the results framework with my indicator plan is that if I click here to my indicators, you'll see that actually those elements are housing my indicators in the list. So these are how we organize the indicators. And you see when I hover my mouse over them like this, we also get the description of the element as well. So they're used to really organize these indicators in the list here. So indicators, they're very easy to add. You can add them all in bulk very quickly if you want to, or you can create your own. So you'll create your own by clicking here to add a new indicator. We could want to track maybe something like number of, let's say, women in RMEL sessions held. Let's say how ambitious would we like to be? Maybe for this year, maybe you want to do 1 a month, let's say 12, and click save. Immediately that's been added here. And then I can drag and drop it to land in my list wherever I want to. So it's very easy to use, it's very intuitive. And if I want to add some data to that, the shortcut to doing so is just click here, and then I can come in, add new collected data. This will be number 7 if I'm not mistaken. And it's held on the 28th, and click save. And then immediately you can see we've 58.33% of this target achieved for this year. So it's very quick to be able to enter these things and to start tracking. That's a simple example, but you can understand it's quite intuitive for anyone to pick this up and to start using it straight away. And this is really the benefit of TolaData to a lot of organizations, is that you don't need to code it, you don't need to do this enormous overhaul of systems. It's you can take it out of the box and start using it. It's pretty quick. If we look at an indicator that's maybe slightly, shall we say, more established, one that has a few collected data items already added, I'd like to take the example of here where we're tracking the total number of trainings completed. And you might notice if I go over here to the right, some of them have different icons at the end than others. So here we have the number of trainings on a certain theme 1, theme 2, and 3. And we're tracking these different indicators. We've added some data. They're on their way to being achieved. That's fine. But the total number of trainings up here, this has this different icon. I have a colleague who insists that it looks like coronavirus. I think we're past that at this point. I would like to say like flower or something, but you whatever helps you to remember it, I don't mind. But this one is different because this is an aggregated indicator. So instead of adding collected data to it the way I just did to our sample one where we were counting the number of sessions, instead of adding data to it, I add other indicators to it. So for example, we're currently on 317. If I click in here, I can see that those 3 indicators are contributing to this overall one. It's been set up that way. So they're aggregating on this level. This means that if I go back and let's update number of trainings on theme 2, I can say, for example, we did 100 more, right? So we were on 319, something like this. Oh, forget the date. I've done this so many times. You think I wouldn't forget things like that, but anyway, still happens to the best of us. Click save. Immediately it's updated my actual versus target here, and it will have also updated. Now we're on 417 up at this level. So you can imagine this is a very small scale example of how that's used, right? We're just trying to aggregate, but there are so many situations in which this is useful. One of the most frequent ones that I see is what I mentioned at the beginning, where an organization might be running the same or similar types of programs in lots of different countries, right? You have lots of different sites or lots of different areas where you're rolling out the same type of projects under one big program. And what you'll do is you'll create a project for each of those, and they'll have some indicators unique to the project, but many indicators which are also common, and they want to be tracked at this overall programmatic level. And it's so easy then what you do is you just set up this extra programmatic level where you have the same indicators, but this time they're aggregated ones, and all of the different project level indicators will feed that aggregate level. And it means that everyone working on the project level, their data immediately feeds that higher level, which will probably also set up to feed into a nice dashboard, and everything just flows really seamlessly and automatically, and it saves so much time. It ensures the data quality, nothing's getting mixed up on the way. It's completely consistent from the very beginning all the way through to the reporting. And speaking of the reporting, there's lots of other lovely features in here that I'd like to show you, but I'm conscious I'd like to also take some questions, so I'm going to run straight there and go to the dashboards. So we saw, maybe I should return for a second. We saw in the indicators section we can add some data. If I wanted to take a look at how that data develops over time, firstly, there's the option of checking it out in the indicator itself. So if I click on, let's say, for example, this one here, we'll take a different indicator. We can go to the results summary, and this is where I can see how this indicator has progressed over time. So I can choose, you'll remember I said at the beginning we had the standard periods, and this is just your normal calendar year. So maybe I want to see the semi-annual results of this indicator, and it'll give me these automatic results straight into a chart, which I can interact with straight away. You can create your custom periods, like I mentioned, for a specific maybe donor or partner or something. So maybe we want to see this custom period result, as well as the percentage of the total actuals over time. You can even see how the disaggregated results have worked over time. Okay, this one's not been disaggregated, that's a shame, but you can break that down over time as well. So this way that I'm showing you here, these automatic charts and analyses of one indicator, these are very useful to get an overall look at how this one indicator is doing. But the dashboards is where we can really, really bring it all together. Lots of different indicators, even lots of different projects. There's really no limit. So we already had a quick look at this ABC schools dashboard. So I was mentioning we can see images, text. We're pulling, maybe it's clearer now that the data that's been added to those indicators, it's going to come straight in here as well. So it's really flowing all the way along. Let's see what other one can we take a look at as well. Let's go on to page 2. Maybe a food security report. I hope this has something nice in it. Yeah, it does, looks good. And this is a good example of you can also change the colors of your dashboards as well. So organizations are using this to report either in their own branding colors, or sometimes to their donors in the donor colors, or sometimes even projects have their own specific kind of theme that they're running on. But the one I said at the very beginning that I was excited to show you was one that it was actually just released, I think the beginning of this week, I think it was Monday. So we've started this series of case studies in TolaData, which might be interesting to you. You can find them on the website. It's just toladata.com, and then they're up here in resources in the case study section. Maybe I can even put it in the chat. That might be a little more useful than just trying to remember. But I think anyone who is interested in coming to this meeting might find these interesting, because I really loved reading them. And I think you might too. So the most recent one we released was in collaboration with the GIZ, which is the German Federal Development Agency. And they've been using TolaData for their RIE project, which is a rural youth job creation project, for the last 3 years. And I think the program will run for 1 more year as well. We have another one down here, SUFASEC. It's a global agri-food program. This is a really interesting one because SUFASEC is an alliance, if you've not heard of them, of 6 different Swiss NGOs. So you have NGOs like Vets Without Borders, Fast in Action, Swiss Aid. There's 6 different large and independent NGOs who have come together to do this enormous program. Absolutely hundreds of projects that they're all tracking in TolaData, so it's a good read. But what I really wanted to show you was the dashboard that has been created for this GIZ project. And the reason I want to show you it is because what I'm showing you in the example in here, this is something we've created, right? Of course, we're going to show you the various things you can do with a dashboard. But this GIZ one is great because it's actually their live dashboard that they are sharing with everyone. It's real, it's their raw data that's coming directly from their indicators. You can check in a few months and it'll be different again. So if I click to download this PDF, they have, I think on the next page here, yeah, click here to see the live public dashboard, and that'll take me then to TolaData. And I don't have access to their TolaData account, right? I have my own account. I do not have access to theirs, but they've generated this public dashboard, which anyone who has a TolaData account, they can do this in their dashboards, get a public link and turn on the sharing option. And then you can use this to report, to spread and share your impact as GIZ are doing. You can embed this in websites, and this is what it looks like when you're really seeing, this is how they're really actively reporting on this program. And I just really recommend reading it. Personally, I really enjoyed it. I wasn't involved in the creation of it at all, and I found it a really, really interesting read. So you can see the whole story of their project. You can see they're using their specific program colors. They're disaggregating the data of the participants who have been reached, because they're really trying to reach young people and specifically women. And it really, really tells the story. And personally, I got a lot from it. I learned a lot from it. I thought it was very beneficial and also just kind of cool. So I hope you do take the time to check it out, and maybe let me know if you do as well, because I really enjoyed reading it as well. So that's basically, if we go back to this slide that I showed you at the beginning, a very quick overview of how that data flow goes. So we saw the collection. We didn't go into too much, but I mean, anybody here knows what that looks like. You can use any of these various tools, including TolaData. Straight into TolaData, you import it into this data table section, and then you add it to your indicators the way I showed you. You manage it in that indicator plan, you track it. You can also do some program or project management as well. And then you visualize and you report in the dashboard. So it's this seamless data flow from beginning to end. It's a brief overview. There's lots more we can do, but I hope it gave you a little bit of a taster of what it's like inside of TolaData. And now I can move to my slide. I did it a bit too early earlier on, but I'd be very happy to take any questions. I know we haven't had any so far, whether that's in the chat or if you'd like to speak, that would also be really lovely. But I hope you found it beneficial, and it would be really great to hear from you in these last few minutes. So thank you for listening.
Great. Thank you too, Hannah. That was really a nice overview of TolaData. So participants, please, the floor is open for questions. I'm sure you've heard a lot within this short time that we've spent together, but please feel free to ask any question you might have about TolaData, what they do, or about the software that Hannah has spoken about. So any questions, you can also type in the chat if you're not able to unmute and speak directly. Yeah. Okay. Okay, maybe I can start and then hopefully people can come in. Okay. So I wanted to find out, assuming you have, as an organization, you've generated historical data over time, and yeah, you chance upon TolaData and you realize that, oh, this software can help us organize our M&E processes better. But looking at how the system is, I believe the fields, even though they might have some level of flexibility, they might also be a bit rigid in the sense that you cannot alter the codes and things like that. So assuming you want to import this historical data, and it might not also be, maybe the structure might not be the same. Like how do you ensure that it's compatible with like how the TolaData system organizes, so that maybe this is like indicator data. So assuming you want to import that, how do you organize so that it doesn't mess up, like it doesn't get messed up in your M&E dashboard on TolaData?
Sure, thank you. It's a really good question, and one that does come up, I would say semi-frequently, because for the exact reason that you described. I mean, you happen upon TolaData and you think, wow, this is neat. What if we could have everything from before look like this as well?
Yeah.
So there are kind of two answers, and I think it depends on the end goal, because for some organizations, it's enough to just have the data somehow accessible there. And the very, very simple answer is you can upload some data tables, you can upload some files, and it's saved and it's accessible. And then you can tell your team everything's in TolaData. And it may not be in the format that all of the new projects will be in, but it's there. That's one option. The second option, if you wanted to all be kind of in line with one another and to all look pretty the way it does in this TolaData format.
Yeah.
That's when organizations will work quite closely with one of our consultants to really figure out how to make sure that the projects and their data fit, because TolaData, as you say, it's flexible, but there's a degree of sometimes creative thinking, just because you need to figure out how to make sure that everything will match, and how to make sure that you're getting the most benefit of a platform like this for your indicators. So yeah, it can be a tricky one sometimes, because the historical data, it's already set up one way. You're not going to change it now. But so far we haven't had any sort of issue where it's not been resolvable in one way or another to make sure it's accessible in there. And sometimes, especially with the previous projects, maybe they'll want to be able to create a nice report or a nice dashboard just to have accessible, so it's enough to get the very high level data in there, and the more kind of detailed and granular level information, this can be uploaded and stored in there in a different way. So very much depends. But as you say, the platform is pretty flexible, and we're I won't say always, because I mean, of course, there are cases where a different type of tool is more applicable. But in most cases, what we find is that we'll be faced with a wonderful new project, and sometimes it's the easiest copy and paste you've ever seen. It's the easiest, let's just implement this in 10 seconds and nobody has to think about it. But other times it's more nuanced than that, and that's why we have a team of consultants. That's why we offer consultancy and data setup services, and we will work very closely with some organizations to make sure that everything is really, really neat and that they're pulling the most benefit from it possible.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I also want to know, so the report you showed in the dashboard, is it possible to get it exported as a Word document or maybe PDF? Or
Yeah, absolutely. So not as
okay.
a Word doc, unfortunately, but a PDF. There's a little printer
Oh, okay.
icon, and you just
Yeah.
click to print a PDF. And yeah, it's that simple. And a lot of orgs will use that, because even though you can share that public link that I was showing you, and you can do that on any dashboard, sometimes you just need the offline file, or some people in their reports might need to put it into a presentation and things like this. So then you can download it that way. Also, for the presentations, something I've seen people doing is really just taking a screenshot and pasting it into their slides, because sometimes this is just the format that's required by whoever is on the receiving end of the presentation.
Yeah.
So, creative solutions sometimes, but yes, there's the export option as well.
Nice. Okay. I'm also curious about the case studies. So do these organizations consent to have these case studies done on their projects, or like it's a must once you sign up with TolaData, expect that there'll be a case study on your project? Like how does that work?
I wish we could do a case study on everybody. It would be so interesting, but no, absolutely
Yeah.
not. We take, of course, the privacy and the data protection element of it very, very seriously. TolaData is a German company, so we fall in line with all of the GDPR regulations, and also more honestly, it's a very stringent data privacy policy. Our hosting provider is one of the most accredited, honestly, potentially globally, but certainly in Europe, it's very, very stringent. So no, we don't just run a case study, even though that would provide loads of interesting information for everybody. So these two that we've published so far, they're the first in a series that's in the pipeline at the moment. But these are organizations that we've been working very closely with for a number of years. We've built a rapport with, and it's mutually beneficial, because for them, they want to use TolaData and its resources to share their impact with everybody. You're telling a wonderful story. Like, the results of these projects are really impressive, these programs. So that they want to get that out there. They want to share this story, and we want to be able to share, look what we have helped them to achieve. So no, it's a long process that my colleagues in communications would certainly be more equipped to tell you about, but it's certainly a collaborative and long process. And we worked the SUFASEC one. We also did a webinar with them last month, which was very much kind of a Q&A format, learning about, and they're very honest. It's not like a TolaData sales pitch or anything like this. They're really talking about the practical side of using it, which I think is what's truly interesting to M&E professionals and people who genuinely want to learn from the source. I think it's probably the most interesting way. And yeah, hopefully we'll have another, I want to say at least 2 of those before the end of the year, those big ones where we're really getting large programs and large orgs to talk about how they're using it. So stay tuned, I would say.
Yeah, I'll be on the lookout for that. Okay, so I want to give other participants the opportunity to ask. So I'll just mention a few names. And Brent, do you have any question? Ma, Charles, Cindy, Welbeck, any questions from anyone? You can
so a quick one, Welbeck.
Yeah.
I saw a tab, Result Framework tab, but maybe I missed it. I didn't see how you navigated on that tab and what was in there. Can you possibly quickly move there? Let's see what's there.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Let me go back. So it was this one here, the results framework, as part of the indicators tab. You're right. I actually didn't go into too much detail about how this works. So the results framework, this is a visualization of your logical framework, and it's completely what's the word, customizable. So you can change these. For example, if I wanted to add a third activity under here, it's like this kind of tree or parent and child logic. So I would click the plus button under this output, and I can say activity 1.3, maybe description in here. Oh, no, in here. And I want to choose the color red to be in line with the other two activities there. And I'll order it number 3. So what happens with the order field is the lowest number will fall to the left and the highest number will fall to the right. So I'm going to assume it's been numbered 1, 2, so next will be 3. And click submit. And okay, this hasn't been numbered that way, so let's check. This one is 3 for some unknowable reason. This one is 4. Okay, so this one is going to need to be 5. You can tell I didn't create this personally, but you see immediately it has moved. So it's this logic from left to right. If I wanted to completely rejig everything, or I realized that I put something in the wrong space, for example, if I needed my output 1 to fall under this overall STG up here, I can just edit it and change the parent element. So the parent element is the element which it stems from. And I can say I want it to fall from this one, click submit, and now that has moved all the way up there, over here, to fall out of this STG. I'm going to change it back so that I don't confuse anybody else who is working on this, and show you that, yeah, straight away it's come straight back down here. So this is how you build it out. I can show you even maybe another project to show you what it looks like in a different setup. This is a different results framework, totally different project, similar kind of logic though. And you know, you can have as many of these as you like. Maybe agriculture one, this results framework, similar type of setup. So it's totally as flexible as you need it to be. And then I'm not sure if you caught it, but what I was saying was the relationship of these results framework elements we see here with the indicator plan is that if I move into this indicator plan tab, you'll see that the indicators are actually being organized under those results framework elements. So as I scroll down, we made those and we're using them now to organize those indicators. I hope that makes sense.
Great, because that was the link between the result framework and indicators was my next question, but I think your explanation got it right there. Now, there are certain indicators that become, should I say, redundant over the period. It is for a specific period. I mean, you finish and you wouldn't need that indicator again, but then you would want to keep records of that measured indicator over that period, even though you are not using it, so that later when you are doing your analysis over the period, you would be able to find out exactly where you came from. Now, the indicators that become redundant over time, how is the software able to keep that in records, or does it automatically take it out? I hope you get my question.
I do. It's actually one I've never been asked before, would you believe, but I really like it, so I'll do my best. So I think the thing that I would do in that situation, so there are 2 aspects to it. Firstly, an indicator might become redundant or not in use anymore simply because of a project end. And in that case, we literally just won't be in this specific space anymore, and then we'll use another project. So I'm not sure if you were here, well, back at the very beginning, but I was explaining that there are different projects in TolaData, and a project is just a unit of data, and you can create as many of those as you wish. So if you come to a project end date, but you want to keep using the system, you'll create a new one, and you don't have to delete the previous one. It's still there, because that's the whole point. You want to be able to go back and learn from what's happened in the past and use that to make very informed decisions in the future. So that's one aspect to your question, as I understand it. If the indicator became redundant during the project life cycle, I would either, in a TolaData context now, create an element over here that was just to house those indicators. So I could line it up right at the bottom of the list so that they're still there. It's organized under that element, but I know, or my colleagues know, that they don't have to keep adding data to it. We're not using it, but it's historic, for example. Or you can always change the name of the indicator itself. So for example, if this one here, the poverty rate, was one that I wanted to change, I could put it in here like so. Click save. And now when I go back here, you're going to see it's immediately clear to me, to my colleagues, that this is not in use anymore, but we're keeping the data there. And maybe you want to organize it a little bit differently, but yeah, that's my immediate solution to that. But maybe somebody would have a different one as well. I'd be very interested in hearing your feedback.
Okay, that's fine. What of qualitative indicators? I see most of the indicators being numeric, proportions, percentages, but if they are qualitative, how does the software accommodate that?
Yeah, it's another good question. So in TolaData, we have 3 indicator types. So when I click here to add a new indicator, I can choose the format, and the 3 options are numeric, percentage, or qualitative. So maybe we already have one in here. Yeah. Documentation of workshop events, photos, reports. And here, instead, in the collected data section, instead of being prompted to add, you might remember here I had a prompt which a box which prompted me to add collected data in a numeric or percentage format. Instead of that, we just enter the date which the data was collected. So for example, let's say if it was in May, to identify the piece of data. And then here you can add the qualitative information in notes. You can add a link, you can upload images, you can also upload files, and this is how that qualitative data is stored then. There are some instances in which I've seen organizations need this kind of combination of both, almost like being able to quantify qualitative elements of a project, and then we'll use a kind of creative solution where we have a numeric indicator, but we're also uploading this type of qualitative information to support it. And that can all be done inside a numeric indicator as well. So there are a few different layers to that qualitative question, but of course then qualitative information can also be added in dashboards, in numeric, in percentage indicators. There's a few different areas, but of course there's a specific indicator format type for it as well.
Okay, that's great. I asked this because I work in both the public health as well as the social intervention sectors.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that when you begin with the basic indicators, they are more quantitative.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number, trained, number giving support, number this. But as you go higher, you are looking for the quality of life of these people. And that becomes qualitative.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Because it is not easy to just tell about the quality of life by an indicator. It's a combination of things. And you will need to add descriptions to them. And so if it doesn't have a descriptive module, then that will be a bit difficult as you move higher in assessing the quality of work the project has done. And that was why I was asking this. But I think that is pretty good. I'm impressed, and I'm glad that I'm here. So maybe the last thing, if you want to get access to the software to use, how do you access it?
Sure. So TolaData it's essentially a software as a service. It's a license-based software. So if you want to use TolaData, you do require you must purchase a license to use it. Usually what will happen is organizations will come to us, they will or someone from an org will come to us and we'll have a call to kind of understand what's the program, or is it an org-wide usage of TolaData, and we'll have a discussion about that. And then we'll make a recommendation of how best to use it, because we have a team of consultants who can take a look at log frames if people want to share them with us and help them apply and make sure that it's the right system, because you don't want to jump into something like that and invest lots of time unless you're certain that your log frame, your indicators and so on can apply and that you're going to get the type of benefit you want out of it. And after that, they will choose to start using TolaData. We'll set up a subscription, and then it can either be and that ranges anything from orgs having 2 people using TolaData to 200. It really is all kinds of sizes, so we have something for everybody in there. And what I would recommend if you're interested in that is just to send me an email. I can show you here. You should be able to see it's a pretty simple email address. It's just hannah@toladata.com. And if that's something, if you'd like to either have that discussion one-on-one or if you'd like to try it for yourself, we also have a free trial, but just email me about that and I'll see what I can do for everybody.
All right, thank you. And maybe with your permission, the very last question from me.
Of course.
For each indicator, you would want to collect data on that, maybe using a tool. The level of complexity of the tool differs from indicator to indicator. But those tools that we use in collecting the primary data, does it have anywhere to fit within the software? Or you will need to collect it separately, maybe in Excel or in any other form before you upload onto this? Or you can have it connected directly to TolaData, and then it will link up to the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the tools which link directly to TolaData are Kobo Toolbox, AM Digital, or ONA or ONA. I've heard different versions of this tool name. We have an API integration with those. Maybe there's room for discussion for other ones as necessary, but this is what we have for now. We also have TolaData forms. So in TolaData itself, if I move in here, we have a specific forms section. And this is also in this data collection area. So you can actually use TolaData itself to collect your data and set up a form. I wonder, does this project have any? Yeah, it has some. Let's have a look. So you can, okay, this is a very simple example, but you can build your own forms in TolaData. The thing I will say is they are online. So if you want to use an offline data collection tool, then it can't be TolaData itself. So then you might use something like, honestly, the most heavily used, I would argue, is probably Kobo. But then you also have Excel. Excel can be used offline. People are using paper-based and then entering it manually. I would recommend Kobo because of the integration, but yeah, essentially, no matter what it is you choose to use, we can import it into TolaData straight away. But if you want it to be as seamless as possible, I would go for one of these 3, or TolaData itself, if you can do online collection.
Okay, great. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Great. Thank you to Welbeck for those spot on questions. Yeah, really good. Okay. So Hannah, do you have any final words before we close?
Only final words are, it was really, really a pleasure and an honor to be invited. So thank you very much, Linda. I'm a big fan of what you've created in this community here, and I feel a little more part of it now. So it's really lovely. I'm very grateful, and thank you very much. Thank you everyone else for your time and for listening. I hope it's been interesting. And please feel free to stay in touch. You can see my email address here. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can see my name here. It would be really great. So do feel free to reach out, whether that's because you're interested in TolaData or because you would just like to stay in touch with other people in the community. That's no problem either way. So yeah, over to you, Linda. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you too. Yes, so please feel free to show your appreciation to Hannah in the chat, or you can also give a virtual applause. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ma, for your feedback. Yeah, she says, thank you all. This is interesting and similar to PMERL. Yeah, sure. Okay, so just a few announcements before we draw the curtain down. So I've shared a number of links. So please provide some feedback on how today's session went. We are happy to learn more about what you gain out of the session, and if you have any recommendations for future meetups. And then also please follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn for updates on our subsequent meetings and interactions. And then Hannah, with your permission, I'll just include your LinkedIn profile if that's okay. So if people want to reach out and they want to try TolaData for themselves or recommend it to their project managers or their bosses, they can do that as well. Great. So it's been a pleasure having you all. I know everybody's eager to start the weekend and enjoy some good rest. Okay, so I just want to say thank you, Hannah, once again, and I'm sure we'll bring you back here to talk about something else. Yeah, so I'm sure we'll speak later or we'll engage later on that. Thank you, Bright. Thank you, Ma. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Tammy and Welbeck for joining today's session. I look forward to having you all here next month. All right, so it's a goodbye from me and enjoy your weekend, everyone. Bye.
Thank you again.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.